It's time to make Torment 4 easily for us sorcerers. And that was with the starter gear I had on. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome now to properly Season 6. It's been a few days we've gotten stuck in, and well, I hope you are enjoying it. But no matter how much you are enjoying it, you are about to enjoy it just a little bit more as I introduce to you our best build, or at least the most approachable version of our best build that you can put together fairly easily, fairly quickly, and get into Torment 4, do your pit 65, and start farming effortlessly with the highest chance for your mythic uniques to drop and such forth and so on. It's where you want to be, ideally, for everything, and thankfully, Sorcerer can comfortably exist on Torment 4 very damn quickly once you get to endgame and once you start getting a bit of farming with, ideally, the fireball build I shared earlier. So, as you can see, yes, Lightning Spear is where it's at. How could it not be? The scaling on it is just so hard to compete with for essentially any other build. However, it has changed a lot because, well, it's changed a lot. The tweaks and, yes, the nerfs have forced adaptation, but in a way that I find infinitely more fun to play because it's now a lot more frozen orby than it is Lightning Spear, hammer the button Lightning Spear. And that means you are just going to be casting Frozen Orb and playing it like a Frozen Orb build, which is really neat. Yes, obviously you'll be using Lightning Spear every time it's off cooldown, but the error of making Lightning Spear have 0 cooldown and just spamming it kind of doesn't work anymore because you'll reach 12 Lightning Spears and then be sat there twiddling your thumbs. So actually having Frozen Orbs to cast is great because we still get to have 12 Lightning Spears, which is the new cap for maximum damage, while also contributing with Frozen Orb damage. In any case, then, as you can see, yeah, it's absolutely tearing through the requirement for Torment 4. I did this as soon as I could. My gear here is not perfect at all in this footage, nor am I fully even masterworked and so on. I don't even have all ancestrals, just to really give you the idea of how potent this is in the way that I've done it as soon as possible. And again, to stress, that really is the goal here. Get you guys in Torment 4 secure, tanky, of course, the ridiculous armor and res capped, which I have the solution for you, and make it as easy as possible to get everything else you could ever want as we go into, I don't know, I guess, ultra endgame. And yeah, so far I've seen this hit for 500 million, and given that my gear can be a lot better, billions are certainly on the table very, very soon. Now, all of this is to say, and as I have been saying, this is your I want to be in Torment 4 and stable as soon as possible version of new Lightning Spear Frozen Orb hybridy goodness. You can, as I have done on both the PTR and the early build we had access to, taken this a lot further, but that requires some seriously good gear RNG, some switching around of skills, and Paragon, and a lot of little tweaks that just aren't reasonable for anyone, you know, playing the game. It's like 5 days after launch to be able to do yet. So if this is the billion Lightning Spear, you can bet the trillion is on its way, so get excited. But right now, you essentially just need to get yourself a Winterglass, and you can slip in to what I'm about to show you and start absolutely dominating, and that's what I want to do for you guys, while also making you nigh impossible to kill, even, yes, as I said, on Torment 4 with its ridiculous res and armor requirements. But this'll have you tearing through your ladder bosses and your Undercity and, well, everything. To touch on Sorcerer in just Season 6 in general then, I mean, currently we're just firmly the second best class. Lightning Spear is still ridiculously good, which says a lot because it really took a lot of hits, but more than that, we have a lot of builds that can comfortably exist in Torment 4, which is really the highest bar there is. Anything above that is sort of just vanity sanity clearing. If you can beat Pit's 65 consistently, you can get all your glyphs to legendary, which this does really quick, as obviously you've seen me just tear through it, and that's really nice too. So yes, we will be looking into your chain lightnings, your blizzards, and indeed a new little thing that I'm working on that if I get it to work just how I want it to work, we might have ourselves a new actual winner when it comes to Sorcerer, and may even be knocking on the door of Spiritborn. We shall see. For now, though, let's not get ahead of ourselves and get a massive instant power jump with my take on Frozen Orb Lightning Spear Hybrid a la Season 6. In a shocking turn of events, surprising no one, we begin with 2 points in Firebolt, and yes, it is going to be our first enchantment. We need things to be a burning, so the burning things take much harder critical hits, and, well, go splat when that Lightning Spear passes through them. It's really too much damage to pass up, we know this, but more importantly, the damage reduction from burning enemies is critical when you're surviving in Torment 4. Then we go on to your core skills, where we're going to max out Frozen Orb. Normally, in previous pure Lightning Spear iterations, you could have just existed on 1 point, because the damage isn't really from Frozen Orb, but given the new way of this working with a 12 cap, the damage from Frozen Orb is actually not completely meaningless, especially when we're switching to this build as soon as possible, so we want to max it out. There's not really anywhere better for the points to go anyway with the extra points that we have. It also then becomes our second enchantment slot to just throw out as many Frozen Orbs as we can. As more than anything, there just kind of isn't a better enchantment to use. We don't want to use Ice Blades, as the Ice Blades spawned by Winterglass occupy the same cap as the Ice Blades from the enchantment, that is to say 3, so it's a waste. We don't want something like Familiar, because again, the Familiars have a cap of 6, and we're summoning them from the Winterglass, and then we kind of only have things like Teleport to go faster, which isn't the worst, but the extra Frozen Orbs do meaningfully help, as we are, you know, getting some decent damage out of them. Then we get ourselves Enhanced and Greater, and then we want to max out your Elemental Dominance to, yes, make these hit that little bit harder, and then we also want to max out your Potent Warding, because you will need the All Resist help in Torment 4, at least initially, before we get to like Tyrael's level of gearing. Even then, we don't ideally want to be wearing that anyway. Essentially, this thing is a godsend for pushing into the harder tiers as soon as possible on Sorcerer, and of course, only put as many points into this as you need to be res capped. So if I only needed 15%, well then I might as well save a point and have it be on 15%. I need everything I can get, so I'm currently maxing it. Over to your defensives, where we just want 1 point in Flame Shield to technically have it, because we need a fire skill both for Tal Rashes and to make Enlightenment activating easier. Then we get Teleport, because, you know, it's Teleport, Enhanced and Shimmering, all the lovely goodness it do. The free damage that is Glass Cannon, and then Ice Armor into Enhanced, and then finally Mystical. Now, Mystical only comes in once you've got a certain bit of gear to let it happen. By default, you are going to want to be on Shimmering. Essentially, you swap to Mystical once you get your Ring of Starless Skies, which might happen soon, it might happen in a while. It is of course a Mythic unique, but that's so you know. I am fortunate enough to have had one drop, so I'm currently set to Mystical, but your base version that I will be presenting here, because I'm going to assume that you don't have it, I don't want to present a build, you know, 4 days in that's like, you require a Mythic unique. That doesn't seem helpful to anyone, so Shimmering is what you want. And the reason for that is permanent Ice Armor is permanent, you can't die, along with permanent of an aspect that we will be grabbing. So we then move on to our conjurations, where a lot is going on, essentially everything but lonely Hydra. Grab yourself Familiar into Enhanced and then Invoked. This 10% increased damage is lovely. lovely, as we'll have the lightning familiars out, and, you know, lightning damage from the lightning spear splintering energy. Then we want said lightning spear, grab it to enhanced and then invoked. Get yourself your ice blades to enhanced and summoned, to help with maximum cooldown reduction for maximum everything, but mainly lightning spears. Get yourself aligned, so we get 3 out of 3 protection for more not dyness, and on the line of not dyness, mana shield 2. We will be spamming frozen orb, so this is going to be up all of the time. Then, yes, your conjuration mastery, the big damage, and mainly, at least early on when you first swap to this, the mana regen is huge. We want as many stacks of this always in every sorcerer build, which is a little bit dull and hopefully won't be forever, but for now it is the way. And then we'll grab just an extra little bit of lucky hit just for Winterglass. We might as well with the extra points that we have in Vessel. Then over to here, where we get 3 out of 3 Icy Veil, just for as much barrier uptime as possible for survivability, and indeed interacting with Shimmering. If it's up for 24% longer, we get a longer time to reduce its cooldown, and it's a lovely little feedback loop. Then we want Inner Flames, just to max out your Devouring Blaze for that lovely increased crit damage. Over to our ultimates, where we get 3 out of 3 Permafrost, Hoarfrost, and Icy Touch. The Icy Touch is pretty much just for the Frozen Orb, as is honestly the Permafrost, but the Hoarfrost is lovely for staggered bosses on the Lightning Spears, and indeed the frozen enemies that we will be generating from our Tempers. Then you want 3 out of 3 in your Evocation. Cooldown reduction is always glorious. And then lastly, causing Currents into Electrocution just for more survivability. Our key passive will of course be Enlightenment. The mana regen early is phenomenal, but the damage and attack speed is even more so, not to mention the triple stacking Fire, Lightning, Cold. This thing is just the new standard of key passives for us, and it is hard for anything else to compete. It also is why we are, as I said, using the Flame Shield, just so we can stack it up quicker, and that will cause a little bit of a complication in a later build that I'll be showing you guys, but that's getting way ahead of myself. The point is, this thing is ridiculously powerful, and I'm so glad we have got it. Now, if you are swapping to this literally as soon as Winterglass drops, you will maybe have some mana problems spamming your Frozen Orb if you've not got the speed of build yet to have enough stacks of Conjuration Mastery and mana regen. In which case, you want to do the following: take your 3 points out of Icy Touch and put it in Frigid Breeze, just to have a little bit of extra mana coming in. That is that. So, our skill tree is complete. Let's move on. Right into gear. But before we get actually into gear, I really want to stress your armor cap and your all-res cap. I'm at 995, which is still 85%, which is what you want it to say, but you need to be armor capped at 1000 and all-res capped at 70% at a minimum. Otherwise, you will just go splat on Torment 4 and indeed anywhere else too. So the reason I'm kind of bringing it up separately is there is a lot of places that we can get this stuff from jewelry combinations with gems, to Paragon, to your raw gear itself, to even the skill tree with like potent warding. You're going to have to make the best judgment call based on your level of gear and what you're working with, what you need to get from where. I will do my best to guide you at every stage, of course, but always be thinking about that. So right now here, if I cast a random skill, I'll go up to 62%. Thanks to Potent Warding, which isn't actually capped. That's because I, of course, got Ring of Starless Skies, so when I put that on, I do go up to the cap with Potent Warding active, which is completely fine. But before I got it, I had it set up so I was capped with my normal ring, so I would have had an extra 8% here. So that's the kind of adaptation that you'll need to consistently do on the framework that I'm about to disclose. So in any case then, yes, gear proper. So you want to have legendary aspect-wise, very specifically on a two-handed staff. It needs to be a two-handed staff. We need to double the power of it. Your Splintering energy. Get, of course, the highest roll that you can. Hard farm for it if you need to. It's very important. Then we want ourselves Frozen Orbit for the extra explosion, so an extra time of reduce the cooldowns by 0.3 seconds. That is very very important too. And then finally, you will have yourself your Storm Swell as your last defensive, the extra damage while you've got your Ice Armor on, which is why we have the Ice Armor cooldown reduction on mana spend to keep that up as long as possible. This is the aspect that you will eventually drop once you do get Ring of Starless Skies and can slot it in, and that is the point at which you then make the swap on your skill tree to have Mystical Ice Armor instead, as we no longer actually need this because we don't need to help the aspect uptime and we're tanky enough without it. In any case, then, that is where it currently stands. Defensively, on your chest, you want just a good defensive aspect. Ever Living works fine. You can also take the Ice Armor one, and you will be good to go. So, let's get into uniques. So we, of course, want ourselves the Fractured Winterglass. You can't do the build without it. You need it to happen. Ideally, you want to get a lovely GA on the Conjuration Mastery, which I managed to actually get, but I've not even upgraded it yet. None of the footage you've seen has been using it, so there is still, as I keep saying, a lot of power to still climb to in this build. In any case, yes, get your Fractured. That said, the All Resist GA really helped me for getting into Torment 3 and Torment 4, so it's not really the worst if that happens to you. Always think about that balance of all resist and armor. Then your Talrashas, still not found an ancestral one, so that's really lovely, but honestly it's probably the least important ancestral to get because what we care about is that 75% multiplicative damage increase, and actually the +2 potent warding is really, really good too for more all resist to again help you get into these tiers faster. Glorious item. Then we want ourselves Essus for that lovely critical strike damage chance and just essentially everything that it does. We want ourselves to Bolts. The damage is nice, but the mana gain will be really helpful earlier on when you first switch to this. It'll help smooth out the curve. Doesn't really become needed as you get more and more power and better gear, but it really does help to begin with, and the damage, of course, isn't exactly bad. Lastly, then, your Godslayer Crown. This is actually quite nice. The All Stats helps activate a lot of Paragon nodes earlier on. The cooldown reduction's great, and the pop of damage when the actual effect activates is really, really nice. Now, you will have a situation where you're probably got to Bolts, you've got Godslayers, you put them on, and then your armor and your all resist drop like crazy if you don't have enough Paragon points to get certain nodes that you need to make these caps. So what you might have to do is something like this that I was wearing for a while because I literally couldn't equip Godslayers without being too squishy because I couldn't make the cap. I had to have another armor, all res, % total armor helmet on to make it happen. So this is something you have to think about. If you do have this, something like Concussive Strikes is great, but you need to decide when you can finally put on both Godslayer and Bolts based on your armor and your all res. You have to balance it as best you can. So essentially, step 1 of this build is get your Winterglass, your two-handed staff with a good splintering energy, get to Bolts and Godslayer, and then get your armor and your all-res to a point that you can equip both of them while still being at cap, and until you can do that, something like this helmet is going to be very, very useful for you. Getting your final tier of gems, like the Grand Skulls for 240 armor, is going to be very freeing for that second armor roll and that second % total armor temper, and then the all-res will come in a huge way from your Paragon board once you've got enough points, and that's really the big unlocker to putting Godslayer on over a regular helpful helmet like this. In any case, this is your ideal setup. Affixes, then, you want critical strike damage. Everywhere you can get it, always critical strike damage. After that, you want critical strike chance, at least until up to 100% of course, and then cooldown reduction and attack speed. Then you've just got intelligence, vulnerable damage, and your kind of not as helpful ones that you're just going to have to make do until you get better gear. For your defensiveness, then, you just essentially want this int health armor on your chest piece. That is perfect, and that is bosh done. You might want a plus mana per 5 seconds roll on your gear earlier on to help with the mana curve, or indeed the all res if you are needing to still use that, but you'll have to make that call depending on what your mana and resistance cap situation is. For then your gems and runes in your weapon, you want that critical strike damage from your emeralds. In your jewelry, you will want yourself more than likely armor from skulls, but you might need diamonds for all res depending on your gear situation. For example, if I did have this back on, my armor's way above, so I could take one of these out and then use it to gain more all res from diamonds, so you'll have to make that call. Then for your runes, you want yourself this Tam Gar, cast an on-channel skill and gain critical strike chance. You only want that if you do indeed need the critical strike chance, so I'm not going to hit 100% even with it, so that's really nice. Your second runes, you would ideally want the generator that is gain offering from using a cooldown, and then the Barbarian's Warcry. I have sadly not had that drop for me yet, so I just have intelligence in, which you want to use everywhere else until you get the runes and indeed on your third bit of gear. Lastly then, when it comes to gaining mythic uniques, the only one that instantly just improves this build and then you don't have to change anything is your Starless Skies. You just put it on for your ring, you drop the Storm Swell, and then, as I say, you make that change on the skill tree. Any other mythic uniques past this fundamentally alter the build and change it in a direction that will need a whole other guide that I will be bringing you once I've got them, but this is sort of the next step for now. Get a Starless Skies and make it your second ring, and indeed, if you could only have one, you would choose Starless Skies, so this is a nice template to aim for. What I have got set up here: your Starless, your Godslayer, your Tibolts, armor capped, and all res capped in Torment 4, and then you are ready and rocking for anything else you could ever want to do this season. When it comes to piloting this, of course, it is fairly simple. Just always be casting your frozen orbs in the direction of enemy, and you see I do run out of mana without enough conjurations out. That is to be expected, that is completely fine, but then once you start actually getting everything rolling, the Tibolt's mana is coming in, smoothing off the curve, you just can't run out of mana at all, and there it is. So get your frozen orbs flying, use your ice blades on cooldown, use your lightning spear on cooldown, and the teleport for, you know, go faster through the thing. Ice armor and your flame shield for whenever you need that defensive boost. We don't need a barrier on all the time for damage now, because we're not using Storm Swell in its older form, or indeed its new form with ice armor, so we really can just use these, you know, as they're intended to be, which is defensive. Except for one particular situation, which is going to be happening regularly, which is Enlightened. So of course, activating this needs you to keep alternating skills that you use. The best way to do that is, as soon as you start combat, you want to do Frost, Lightning, Frost, Fire, Frost, Lightning, Frost, and then you will be as close as you can get, and down it will be ticking. That's really what the Flame Shield is here for, so we can keep that alternating going. We always have access to Frost because of Frozen Orb, but our Fire and our Lightning are on cooldowns, so you always want to Frost, Lightning, Frost, Fire, Frost, Light, and so on and so forth. You will get a feel for it as you go along and just put a little bit of attention into the actual order that you're pressing your buttons, just for maximum enlightenment uptime. Mercenaries-wise, we want Rahir as our main lad, and the reason for that is twofold. Early on, when we are struggling to make our Torment 4 all-res cap, this extra 15% all-res is huge. I wouldn't be capped without this, so essentially I have to use him for now. But I'm also happy to, because both Ground Slam and Bastion are huge damage increases thanks to Inspiration. 15% multiplicative more when enemies are stood on the Ground Slam is huge. 25% multiplicative more damage done when you're in his Bastion is even huger. This is really nice, on top of him just making you really tanky all of the time, which feels really good for just blasting through your farming and not having to worry. Like, the error of random one-shots is just not happening to me, even on Torment 4. In fact, I don't think I've ever felt this sturdy on a Sorcerer in the entirety of the time I've been playing Diablo 4, which is to say, from Season 0. Actually, before that, in the initial, like, beta weekend. So yeah, he is just great with this setup. Secondarily then, we want Vayana as our reinforcement, enlightenment, simply for bloodthirst to get that 10% attack speed every time it goes off, and that's really nice. It's not like a huge deal, but it is there. The only real note of this is if you have 100% attack speed, of course this will do nothing because it's bucket 1, and then you can choose something else. You can do a few other funky things with Subo, but for now, here is just a rock to let you spring into Torment 4. Tempering and masterworking then. On your weapon, you simply want from the weapons to have Frozen Orb cast twice, and then offensive, you want that Worldly Finesse for critical strike damage. The same with your gloves on the offensive side, critical strike damage, and then we want our lovely Worldly Fortune, and ideally chance to freeze or chance to immobilize. Whichever you don't get, you want on your chest. So I have chance to immobilize here for Devouring Blaze, and then chance to freeze here for our increased damage to Frozen. This is the ideal setup. Then on the other slot for your armor, you very, very much want percent total armor. It'll be very hard to reach the cap without it, so make sure that's a thing. And then on your ring, before you hopefully soon get your Starless Skies, you want critical strike damage, and early on, if you're struggling to just cast Frozen Orb without running out of mana, get yourself a resource generation temper, and that'll fix that right up. Other than that, you are looking good. You would want Lightning Spear cooldown reduction if you don't need the resource gen. Masterworking wise, just hitting the critical strike damage is really nice, hitting the Frozen Orb chance to cast twice is really nice, and then obviously Conjuration Mastery is the big one to hit wherever you can. Attack speed also feels pretty good to get, because we are slowly casting Frozen Orbs with a staff. Paragon board then, to finish this off. Obviously I'm at 178 Paragon levels, 206 points total, because of your renown and such, so stick with me. I have enough points now to have everything major I need, and then I will let you know where to spend extra points as you get them. In any case, then I wouldn't recommend swapping to Splintering Energy, Frozen Orb, until you have at least 130-ish Paragon points. That's probably the minimum. You do need a lot of stuff online. In any case, yes, we begin initially up and right, grab your Elementalist. The non-physical damage is lovely, especially with Enlightenment. Then head up to Resilience and grab the extra All Resist 2. Now, this is going to keep coming up as we go through the Paragon, so I will simply say it now. Anywhere that I have an All Resist node like this, you only need to take if you actually need the All Resist to hit the 70% cap. Otherwise, it's a wasted point and you can spend it somewhere else for damage, like just shoving it into more non-physical damage. So wherever I have got an All Resist node, check your All Resist in Torment 4 and see if you need it or indeed need more, and then grab it. So for now, get your Resilience and then head straight up to the Glyph slot where we will be putting Elementalist. The boost to the non-physical is lovely, the 15% multiplicative is also very lovely, and it fits in quite nicely and gets activated. Now, of course, I have a couple of legendary glyphs, the rest are all at least at level 15 for the radius increase. If you don't have that, then you will have to activate the glyphs the best you can with the available stats in the area, and then take points elsewhere to make that happen. I obviously can't know what everybody's glyph status is when you're watching this, so, you know, activate the glyphs that they get put in the best way that you can. In any case, then we go up and grab Studied before heading through Elemental Balance into the next board, the new Heart of Sorcerer, your fundamental release, our new one. Arrange it so the glyph is closest to the gate, and then we want to head initially up and right through Lightning Cutter, then straight to the glyph where here is Tactician. Again, increasing that non-physical is lovely, the damage it gives is also lovely. The thing is, with a lot of Sorcerer builds, you are pretty much safe to just have and level up about 6, maybe 7 glyphs. The rest are all just so definitively worse that it's kind of straightforward Paragon-wise, which is both a blessing and a curse. In any case, Tactician in here, then we head left to get it activated with the dex, and then down to Elemental Balance for that little bump. Up from this willpower through this dex, which helps with the activating of Tactician, and then we end up here at this int.
Initially, we want to go to the right and get this entire collection. We want the damage reduction, we want the overdrive, and we want the extra armor to help out. Like with the all resist, if you have armor cap without this, then obviously don't get it because it's a waste. Spend that point somewhere else. Then we want to head to the left and get Fundamental Release. Then go all the way over here and grab yourself Electromagnetism. Up past Fundamental Release, over here, Suffused Resilience, grab all of this as you need it. The damage reduction is good, the all resist if you need it. Then right to your Kindling and then grab the extra critical strike damage because critical strike damage is everything to Splintering energy. Then we want to head up from this intelligence round to the gate where finally we move into our next board, which is going to be your Frigid Fate board. Put the glyph in the bottom right, and then we want to head straight up to said glyph where Flame Feeder is, the 10% multiplicative to your fiery enemies. Very, very nice to have. Up to Elemental Favor to grab it, grab the dex to activate it, and then left through Weakness all the way around and get your Frigid Fate node. After that, we want to be heading right past Overdrive here to the next board gate where we will be finding ourselves Enchantment Master. The big reason for this is, yes, it gives us more non-physical damage to boost with the glyph, but it also gives us access to this triple cluster of incredibly useful nodes that will get you into Torment 4 very nicely. Also, the attack speed on the way is really good for this build. These nodes are more all resist, then you've got more damage reduction and all resist. You have like a 60 armor node here, which can come in really handy if you're struggling, if you don't have tier 5 skulls in your jewelry yet. So this is just a really good flexible board for us to work with. Immediately, though, you want to head right to this willpower up to the glyph where we have Unleash. The mana is nice, the 8% multiplicative increase in damage is also nice, and increasing the non-physical is very nice too. It's just a really solid glyph. Get left, get tactical, and then go right, grab the int to finish activating it, and then up to Elemental Balance. Now we want to branch off from this willpower, get everything in this cluster, Ruinous and all the attack speed, then head straight right to this int, which is your little crossroads. Now, here is where essentially you just want to get as much of this as you need to make the caps that you need to get. You need to be all-res capped to 70%, so get more all-res like I have done here, and then again down here. If you need help with armor, if you're struggling with armor cap, go up here and grab more armor, grab this 60 armor. These 3 clusters, you just need to get as much of them as you need to make the armor an all-res cap. Then we can go to our final board, which will be off left from Electromagnetism, and it will be your Burning board, Burning Instinct. Big reason for that is the damage reduction in armor can be very, very useful. A lot of critical damage is obviously great, and even the damage reduction from burning is very, very helpful. For now, though, glyph in the top right, and we want to head straight to it, where we find our best glyph that we have as a class, Destruction, at least for any build that, crits. This is a huge increase, of course, to Splintering Energy, that's all about your crit damage, and the actual legendary upgrade is lovely too. In any case, get this slotted and get it activated, and with any spare points you have, grab every little bit of dex you can in the area. Then we want to head right, grab yourself Cinders, and then also Explosive 2, and that's a lovely increase in critical strike damage. After this, then, of course, I am out of points, but you might have more, in which case you want to continue on from this int here and go down and get Kindling for even more crit damage. You then want to swap this lovely int here to this Strength to be a little bit more efficient path, and then come down here and get yourself Safeguard, the damage reduction from elites. This will give you more armor, so you might be able to save points elsewhere on armor nodes. Then after that, you want to get yourself every single in the area non-physical damage. So all of these non-physical damage magic nodes that I don't have the spare points to get yet, because they're all doing something more important, you can get them all around, and that is lovely. Then you can use points to go over here for the vulnerable damage and the damage reduction. You can use points to go over here for the damage reduction from vulnerable, get even tankier. Then we can go back to here and actually go all the way to Enchantment Master just to throw out more frozen orbs. You might as well. This is reaching the point where we're spending points just to spend points because we have them, so that is that. And I really do love Fundamental Release because it lets us do this lovely shape of board, which I find, you know, really satisfying. That then, ladies and gentlemen, is that. Splintering energy, bajillion critical strike damage, doing a bajillion damage and getting the job done, and then some for Sorcerers in Season 6. There is plenty more to explore, plenty more to come, and even something very, very special that I can't wait to properly test and hopefully bring you. For now, though, I hope you find this very useful and powerful, as indeed it is. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.